Okay, amazing. Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay, all the panelists?
Yeah, all
Yeah,
good.
all good.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, great. Well, we will get started as it's bang on 3 o'clock. So, firstly, hi, everyone, and welcome to our first webinar of 2026. Hopefully, we're here to help you start the year off with some great inspiration. Firstly, just a reminder, if you want to add captions to today's session, then click the button at the bottom of your screen, and that's labeled with the CC symbol. Just a quick intro of who Action Rocket are, just in case you've been told to sign up to this by your manager, but you've actually got no idea what this is all about. We are a independent CRM creative agency. We're based in London, but we have clients globally. And we help to nurture relationships between brands and their customers. And we do this by using multiple channels and touch points, including email, web, and mobile for push, SMS, and RCS. And we make sure that brands love the messages that they send just as much as their customers love receiving them. So for today's session, we've partnered with Email Love, and we will be covering the ever-growing trend of wrapped emails. And here's what we've got lined up for today. First, we'll set the scene and break down the ins and outs of a wrapped email, what they should consist of to be successful. Then we'll be speaking to our three expert panelists who will be giving overviews, showing some great examples, and helping you guys with some top tips on how you can create your very own amazing wrapped emails this year. And then finally, we will finish up with a live Q&A. So if you do have questions throughout, then please drop them into the little Q&A box that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. We've got the Action Rocket team on hand to reply to your questions throughout the session. And then we will choose some at the end to ask our panel. And if we don't get around to answering any questions, or you'd like a bigger conversation about something specific, then please reach out to us afterwards and we'll help you where we can. Let's start by introducing everyone. So firstly, hi, I'm Bex. I'm a strategist here at Action Rocket, and I will be the host for today's webinar.
I'm Rebecca, also a strategist at Action Rocket, and I'm looking forward to exploring all things wrapped.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm a designer at Action Rocket, so looking forward to exploring all things visual and the aesthetic side of things as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Andy from emaillove.com. We are an email inspiration website and we post over 1,000 new emails to our site every single day. We also provide you with insights and analytics on some of your favorite brands. So please go check us out, and I'm excited to share some of my favorite wrapped emails with you today.
Amazing. So, why did we think that this trend was worth discussing today? Working within this industry, it's really easy for us all to presume that everybody knows exactly what a wrapped email is. But what about those brands who are having these conversations internally but don't actually know how to go about it, where to begin, and what those first next steps should be? So, you might be recently established, you might think that you don't have the right data available, all the while comparing yourselves to brands like Spotify who've really set the tone for these types of emails. So, the purpose of today is to debunk some of this, explain how, when done well, these emails can bring genuine value to customers and they can also really help with strong commercial returns for brands too. Wrapped fatigue. This is something I wanted to acknowledge at the start of today's session because I think it's a feeling that many may be feeling at the moment, especially considering the time of year. I can only imagine how many of these emails ended up in your inboxes throughout December and January because I personally got so many. So it's something that we're really conscious of today. And as with any communication that you're sending, whether that's an email newsletter, a push notification, an SMS, I think that your mantra should always be, let's not send something for the sake of it. With anything that you are sending, I think it should always be intentional and value led. With that in mind, as it says on the screen, they are absolutely having a moment. So let's unwrap it a little bit more and dive deeper with our panelists. Rebecca, let's start with you. Could you please give us an overview of wrapped emails and what you think they are from your strategic perspective? And why do you think they've become so popular?
Yeah, absolutely. So wrapped is just basically a storytelling format. And its job is to translate data into meaning so that customers can feel seen and understood. I think the most effective wrapped moments celebrate behavior and patterns, not just performance. And they also reflect back who someone is without being creepy, of course.
Mhm.
Um, I think wrapped emails are also highly visual by design because they're built to live beyond the inbox, be shareable, and stick in the customer's memory of you as a brand. And then lastly, from a strategy point of view, wrapped emails work because they bridge reflection and future engagement and create momentum without the hard sell. which is understandably why we all can't get enough of them.
Absolutely, especially when it's brands that you're really excited about and you're loyal to as well.
For sure.
Okay, so let's think about some common misconceptions now then. So one thing that we hear a lot is that Wrapped can only really work as an annual moment, like they can only be celebrating in December and being sent in January, like I mentioned earlier. And what would you say to that?
I would say, yeah, that's probably the biggest myth. I think Wrapped is a format. It's not necessarily a date in the calendar. I think it works annually because people are primed to expect it, but actually reflection happens all the time. And if there's a natural pause or milestone, you can make a Wrapped moment out of it.
Definitely, love that. And people also assume that you need lots of really granular data for it to work, as I mentioned earlier about like Spotify, for instance, like setting that standard. But what would you actually think that you need? Far less than what people would presume, right?
Oh, totally. Like, you just need the right insight. And I know that Andy's going to touch on this later, but one meaningful pattern that's framed well is always going to be 10 stats that no one remembers. I think the concept stops working when it tries too hard to be comprehensive instead of just human.
Yeah, I think that human connection is the most important thing, isn't it?
Totally.
Another blocker is people assuming that you need really advanced tech or personalization for it to work. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you don't need the most advanced tech. You just need clear thinking. The best wrapped emails are powered by really simple logic and really strong storytelling. Tech should enable the idea rather than become the idea itself.
Yeah, definitely. And then the last myth that we put on here is that wrapped emails have to be entirely based on customer data. What would you say to that?
I think that's a good one. But customer data is just one input. You can build wrapped moments from collective trends, cultural behavior, product milestones. As long as it's interesting and the customer recognizes themselves in it, it's going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And for all of you then, what would you say that the foundations are for a good wrapped email? Andy, starting with you.
So I would say it all starts with the data and the story that you want to tell with that data. That's really the foundation. It's not just what numbers do we have? Let's all put them into an email. But what story do you want to tell your subscribers with that data? So you want to think about what do you want, ultimately, what do you want the subscriber to do? Do you want them to share something on social media, click through to a landing page, feel proud about an achievement? You need to think about the story and the purpose behind your wrapped email. And the good news is, as Rebecca kind of touched on, you don't necessarily have to have deep, personalized one-to-one data or a super complicated setup to create a killer wrapped email.
Yeah, for sure. Chris?
Yeah, so for me, from a design point of view, I think just design with purpose, as said here, the data is obviously the main message and it's a starting point, but then that can be used to inform creative visualization of that data. It doesn't have to necessarily always be numbers, but you can really be, as you'll see in examples in a bit, really sort of creative with how you can use those numbers to inform a visual example of that and give it context and really harness sort of the emotional validation that you can get from these statistics and data. That's what a customer really wants from these.
hmm Relatable, right? Like they want to see something and
Yeah,
they're like, yeah,
exactly.
they understand me. They've got that information about me
That's
without
right.
being creepy.
That's the key.
And Rebecca? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to build on what Andy and Chris said about data, I think data can be used brilliantly or it can be used in a way that slightly misses the mark. And wrapped emails work best when they are anchored in the human narrative with the data that's layered on to add meaning to it. Oh, we've seen quite a lot of examples, including from really, really smart brands like Monzo, sad to name names, but where they had really accurate data, but the cultural context had shifted, so the message didn't really land as intended. But to their credit, Monzo listened to customer feedback and really adapted their tone, and now their Wrapped is actually one of the most hotly anticipated each year. So the takeaway for me is simple. If it feels insightful, you've nailed it. And if it starts to feel judgmental or invasive, you've probably gone too far.
Yeah, I love the what you said about the cultural context shifting as well, because I feel like you can start thinking about this kind of thing like towards the beginning of the year, but then actually by the end of the year, something major could have happened and that could impact the content that you want to include. So I think like QAing throughout the process as well. Get all of your teams on board and like really review it every so often to make sure it's still going to land well.
Absolutely. You can always pivot the sort of way you frame the insight as well. I think that's a useful thing to do as the culture shifts.
Yeah, and get a good copywriting team, I think is a good
Mm.
point as well. Make sure that you've got people that know how to say things in the best way. We have a great copywriting team at Action.
We do.
So now we're going to dive into some top tips and some industry examples just to show you what good can look like. Starting with you, Andy.
Great. So here's my number one tip is don't just use data because you have it. You probably have loads of data on your subscribers, but realistically, not all of that data is going to be relevant or interesting to them. So when people think of a wrapped email, they think of this hyper personalized Spotify type of email. Um, but again, it doesn't have to be that way. And we'll go to some interesting examples showing you both ends of the spectrum when it comes to personalization. So we have, collective data on one end where it could be business metrics, how much you donated, top selling products, behind the scenes milestones of your business. So, and we have some really interesting, good examples of those. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have the one-to-one stats on individual users. So product usage, how many times someone purchased or did something in your app, or something that someone accomplished on a one-to-one level. So both of them can work, and there are really creative ways to use both of these methods in your wrapped email. So if we go to the collective examples, the first one is from a D2C beverage company called Better Booch. They make kombucha. And so obviously as a D2C like consumer brand, they don't have super deep one-to-one data on their customers. They don't know how much kombucha you consumed in the year. And so what they did with their wrapped email is they wrapped up some business numbers. So how many cans of kombucha did they sell? How many new products did they release? How many gallons of kombucha were fermented? But what I really like about this one is they also included behind the scenes insights. So they told customers that they built a new brewery. They showed them how many in-store demos they did and how many new products they launched. And so if you're a customer and you love this brand, you like their product, I think this is really interesting and makes you feel more connected to that company.
Definitely. It's all still like really relevant as well, isn't it, to all of the customers? They still want to know the behind the scenes stuff. I feel like that is quite a trending thing at the moment as well, isn't it? People wanting to know what's going on behind the
I
curtains of
personally
brands.
love behind the scenes. I use behind the scenes
Yeah.
content in my like email of content all the time. It works really well. So if you can incorporate that into even if you can incorporate it into your hyper personalized email, I think it works in that use case as well.
hmm
The next up one I have was from Harmless Harvest. It's another beverage company, but they took the social impact angle. So for every bottle of their coconut water you buy, they donate money to various causes. So their wrapped email shows how many projects they helped, how many people they supported, and like how many farmers and schools they impacted throughout the year. And if you're a Harmless Harvest customer, then you helped contribute to those numbers, and so you can feel good about your purchase, and that you helped someone else. And so if you are doing that, if you have that social impact to your brand, that is a very powerful angle for a wrapped email.
For sure. I love the design of this one too. It's super eye-catching, isn't it?
Yes, very eye-catching. All images, but other than
Okay.
that, it's a
Yeah.
very eye-catching design. And then the last one is from Waymo. So Waymo is the self-driving car company in San Francisco. You see them all over the place, and they actually probably do have a ton of data on their users. They probably know exactly where you're going, how many rides you've had, how long you've spent in a Waymo. But they actually used a collective data for their 2025 recap, which is interesting. So their email shows total number of trips completed, hours given back to a rider, and kilograms of CO2 saved. And I think what they're doing here is actually just trying to build trust and comfort with their product. Obviously, self-driving cars are pretty new. A lot of people are not super comfortable with them yet. And so by showing collective data, they can show like, hey, it's actually safe. There's millions of people using this. And I assume maybe in 2020, at the end of 2026 or 2027, we might see a more personalized version of this as
Mhm.
more people adopt it.
Definitely. No, great. Love it.
Okay, moving on to the other end of the spectrum where we have hyper-personalized one-to-one personal data. And the first one I put here was one of my favorites from this year. It was from Customer.io. And they sent this really beautiful design. It shows number of messages you sent, number of people you sent to, and your engagement numbers like opens, clicks, and conversions. But what I really like is they didn't just show the data, they also compared it to last year. So it says like, compared to last year, you were up 90% in engagement and you sent 50% more emails. So giving it that context, I think, is important. And you don't just want to show like, oh, I sent this many emails. You want to know, am I trending up or down with those numbers? And that makes it a little bit more relatable and a bit more interesting for the user.
Yeah, I love
They
the
yeah.
the copy throughout this is really nice too, isn't it? It's been really well put together.
Really nice copy, really nice design. I love the badges, and they actually
Hmm.
give users of your Customer.io account different personas. So there's like the AI pioneer, the data connector. I can't remember what the other one was, but they kind of call out members of your team and ask you to nominate your GOAT or share these metrics on social media. I think they have a share your stats on LinkedIn button at the bottom as well. So they kind of nailed everything, I think, with this one.
Yeah, I love it.
The other one I brought along is or one of the other ones is from Loom. So Loom, I'm a heavy Loom user. So this is a video recording SaaS product. So they have obviously lots of data on their subscribers, but they are showing you or showing me that I'm a top 1% user. I recorded 821 meetings last year, and I think I saved 237 meetings. So interesting stats for me as the user. But what I really like about this one is they gave each user a persona as well. So I'm the director, and they kind of give you a little piece of copy or a bit of blurb about why I'm the director and what that means. And that just makes it a little bit more relatable and personal to me. So rather than just showing the numbers, they're explaining what those numbers mean. And then lastly, Calendly also sends a great wrapped email. Again, they're showing the numbers, so how many meetings I booked, how many hours I saved, the average meeting time. What I also like is they're showing me data that I didn't necessarily know. So for December, that was my busiest month, and Wednesday was my busiest day. So these are things that I didn't know beforehand. So it's just kind of like interesting data for the end user that they're pulling out, and then they're giving you some insights on what that means. But
I
again, it's not just yeah.
I love the how many emails avoided as well. Like content like that is great, isn't it? Just that like subliminal cheeky message.
Yeah, emails avoided, meetings saved. Like
Hmm.
I love that message as well. And I mean, that's kind of the purpose of these products. But I
Yeah,
think they do a good job of calling that out.
yeah, for sure. Okay, and now moving on to you, Chris. What is your top tip for us today?
Yeah, so my tip is don't forget the visuals, basically. So obviously, as I said before, a list of numbers within an email is not going to be very attention grabbing, and every statistic needs a visual to make it land. Those points, those examples that Andy showed are a case in point to this. They're really nice assets and usage of illustration. This could be like a product photo, an icon, comparison graphic, something like that. Just basically anything that brings the data to life, really. The examples I've chosen not to be too biased, but they are ones that we've done at Action Rocket. So, for example, with Gymshark there on the left, what they've done is basically every statistic comes with an accompanying illustration, really sort of nice big typographic numbers. There's one element where it puts your weight you've lifted in context. So in this case, it's the equivalent of a pig, which is really nice fun, sort of bringing in a narrative to the email and to the statistics. It's going to bring into context and make it a little more relatable and funny. So it's not just another amount of weight. It's like, oh, that's the same as a pig. Isn't that great? With the middle one there is the National Theatre, specifically their on-demand service. And this one is predominantly more numbers, but it is using sort of like nice block colors and quite subtle iconography as well, which really helps sort of enhance the data and statistics, as well as bring in personalized messages of your next pick for a show based on your viewing habits, and bring a personalized name within the headline as well. And then also chose Club Pret from Pret a Manger, and this is a really nice one with the sort of running animation that goes down the whole email of this skiing little, I think it's a bit of whipped cream. It comes down the email. So it really draws the eye as you read further. It's sort of a single column, nice rows of statistics. And again, using sort of typography and different weights and different font sizes and color to boost the hierarchy of the statistics and compare them with nice imagery as well.
I find with this, the Pret one, the animation really helps to elevate you wanting to see more, doesn't it? Like it's really drawing your eye down to continue reading.
Yeah, it's literally sort of illustrating a journey and a path, which is
Mhm.
great.
Nice.
A little case study. This is quite a recent one that we've done here for the gym group. There's lots of cool features that we got to include. The way this one works well with an interactive carousel, which is always fun to do. The one on the left here, you're looking at sort of your most active month. And the way that they've done this is not just naming the month, but it's putting it in the context of the whole year. So you can see sort of visually plot like, okay, so my most active month was earlier in the year or later in the year, and really adds a context to the data and sort of signifies the time frame that this was taken in as well. Within the middle, it's again using that same kind of narrative technique of putting you into groups or giving you sort of an identity. So you're a late night grind group or get up and go, depending on your exercise habits. You can see at the top there as well, something to mention this sort of bar. Share your final scorecard on Instagram for the chance to win 3 months of free membership. So this is quite a unique feature that Gym Group brought through that basically we always want to sort of share your stats. And as a brand, that is kind of the next step to sort of elevate this sort of user generated content and really move forward with the data and use it to sort of their benefit as well. And bringing this incentive that you can win these sort of 3 months free membership as well adds to that, the point of trying to click through to share the data also. On the right, this would be the last screen of the carousel. So sort of wrap up as it were, sort of internal wrap up all the statistics you've seen, bringing in nice block colors, and again, big text to enhance the hierarchy of that, reiterating the point of sharing and winning. And then we also have a reset CTA. So once you've gone through the whole experience, you can then just do it again. You don't have to reload the email, which is just a small feature that enables sort of a nicer user experience when reading this as well.
Definitely. I think something else to highlight here, which you briefly mentioned, but about that, the competition element to it. So when we were thinking about the beginning of this campaign, it's really difficult to get into the mindset of somebody who's receiving this and thinking, why would they want to share it on social? So
Yeah.
you can't automatically share an email through like Instagram stories or something that functionality is not available. So we brainstormed thinking, okay, but why would they want to? Why would somebody want to share this on their stories? What incentive do they have? So I think pulling in something like a social competition or something similar, that's really important because then you're bringing, the whole email is about your customer, right? So how can you pull them into it even more and give them an incentive to want to share it and talk about it? And so something like free membership, that's great. That's something they wouldn't receive otherwise. So that's something really important to bear in mind. Amazing. And then finally, Rebecca, for tip number 3.
I love that Chris mentioned a journey because my tip is to take customers on a journey. And really, that just means relevance. We all know that most people don't want more messages. We just want to feel seen and understood. And the best wrapped emails work because they reflect something real back to the customer or the community, whether that's where they started, what they did, and how that behavior might have changed. And that sense of progress is what creates momentum inside a crowded inbox. When people can recognize themselves in the story, it lands as recognition rather than just marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And these are just some examples. These are three very different wrapped examples, but they're all built around moments that genuinely matter to the customer. So the first is uncommon goods, and it looks back at the year using that collective data that Andy was talking about, through the lens of what people chose to give. So using top products, searches, gifting moments that celebrate generosity, which is a really nice touch. With our client Dolce Gusto, we turned purchase data into something a bit more human. So this is the cups of coffee a customer enjoyed throughout the year. And then lastly, Naked Life focuses on impact. So showing customers the positive change that they've helped create, making it less about consumption and more about contribution, which I also thought was lovely. And these are all just different expressions based on the same principle, which is that data works best when it highlights something that people really already care about.
I think again with this Dr. Gusto on the animation, there's something about having an animation like in the hero of these kind of emails, isn't there, to really like hook you in. And if it's something which is, your data that's being pulled in or something that you care about, then that's a great hook to get you started.
Yeah, agreed. I feel like, yeah, the sort of just the subtle addition of animating that number really elevates that. It could just
Hmm.
be sort of a static number, but bringing that nice sort of rolling, sort of slow paced.
Yeah, because also like it's quite an overwhelming number, right? So if you open the email and you saw that straight away, you'd kind of probably ignore the your 2025 wrap. You'd see that and think, oh my goodness, what does that even mean? So yeah, it just adds a bit more context.
Almost like a sort of reveal.
Yeah. Yeah. Very nice. Okay, and then Andy, when people ask, can we send a wrapped email to their teams after this call? What they're usually asking is, where do we start? What do we do? How do we, what's the first move that we take? So could you just run through your top 5 questions which could help shape their story in those first conversations with the wider teams?
Yeah, of course. There's definitely a few questions to ask yourself before you get started. And so, firstly, what think about what data or numbers are going to be of interest to your customers or your subscribers. Not what numbers you have. You have lots of numbers, but think about go back to basics and to think, okay, is it usage? Is it products consumed, purchases, or is it collective data, like something that we achieved together?
Mhm.
Secondly, think about the achievement or what in the data is going to make the user proud. So are they proud to support you? Are they proud of something that they did? Do they want to share? Is it something that they want to share with their followers, their friends, their colleagues, or even their family? Thirdly, if you're using collective data, what product or moment are you proud of? So did you donate to a cause? Did you open a new shop or a new store? Did you launch a new product? Think about what you achieved in the year and what might resonate with your audience.
Mhm.
And then what impact did you create? So it could be sales, it could be number of users, it could be something that someone did in the app, or it could be something completely different. So think
I
about
think
what impacts would actually be of interest.
For sure. And I think as well, it's important to remember that what is important or impactful for one business doesn't mean that it will be impactful for you or your customers. So just because you've potentially received a different wrapped email from a brand and you loved it because it resonated with you, it doesn't mean that you need to copy and paste it for your brand and your customers because the data might not work. So I think it's really important to remember that it's individual, isn't it, for brands?
100%. You need to put yourself in the shoes of your subscribers, your customers, and think about what they want to receive.
Hmm.
And then lastly, what surprised you or your customers? So I think this is a nice element if you can incorporate it. Things like what Loom or Calendly do, where they're kind of exposing like, oh, Wednesday is your most popular meeting day. Is that going to be interesting to me as a user? It is for that use case. So just think about what different types of data could be interesting or surprising for your customers.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that. So then, Chris, from a design perspective, obviously this is a little bit more tricky because it completely depends on, the brand and their design wants and needs. But from a basic design perspective, could you just break down this visual, which covers the basics of how a simple wrapped email could come together?
Yeah, for sure. So this is another Loom example, which we love. So what they've done here is these elements that I've pulled out that I think are really nice. So the Elite Editor, this is again that whole thing about bringing in the narrative and grouping and sort of gives something like a personality with their data. And everyone sort of loves that sense of achievement, having almost like a gold star or a badge or something. And then with this, you've got the visual representation of that with this sort of nice little card in the middle. They're obviously the Elite Editor, so the illustrations are sort of designed around that. And it's a nice sort of visual feature to that as well. So it gives it kind of context and sort of attaches it to something. There's obviously the data in there with the facts and the figures and the numbers. But you need to make sure that the main focus, to bring the main focus to these numbers, you sort of use relevant data and choose sort of insight over data. So basically what Rebecca was mentioning at the start, just talking about more data that's poignant to what they need to get across and make the message personal. So not just sticking in sort of any numbers, make sure that they are relevant and provide insight. And then with the CTAs as well, talking about the encouragement to sort of share to social medias. You want to bring sort of a reason to do that, and bringing that to making sure that the customers and the users want to shout about this data and bring it to all their friends and also their colleagues as well. So adding that option with the CTA is a must really, just to continue that sort of the message from the email and bring sort of purposeness to the stats.
I think something else as well that we haven't touched upon about standing out is like at the beginning we mentioned that it doesn't need to be an annual thing. It doesn't need to be sent at Christmas, but it's like how can it stand out? If it is at that time, then great. But visually, how can you make it different to what every other brand is sending? And if you don't know that, then maybe it is a better option to be sending it in, think of a customer milestone instead. So like when they've been subscribed for a year or when they have purchased X amount of products, that's when you send something like this versus just having to be, oh, we're in December, this is what you've done for the past 12 months.
Totally.
I've also worked with brands that have built the year-end wrapped email and then turned it into a monthly or a quarterly email.
Yeah,
So that
definitely.
could be an interesting idea as well.
Yeah, one of the questions actually, just because it ties into this nicely, but somebody said, is there a subtle way to turn a wrapped email into an opportunity for conversion, and how would you angle this? So that could potentially work, right? Like you're taking some of the content and you're breaking it down into something that's sent more regularly, so on like a newsletter monthly basis or something, or you're taking something else that we've seen some of our clients do is rather than a full wrapped email, you take specific stats, and it could be a nice always on banner in the footer of an email or something like that. Rebecca, is there any examples that you can think of for that kind of thing?
Well, I was just going to add actually that it's also about signposting additional things that the audience might like. So that particular customer, you know that they've engaged with X or bought X, so you can make recommendations off the back of your Wrapped. And it's a really good way to show that they are informed recommendations as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Love that. Okay, so finally, you should now have a bit of an understanding as to what a wrapped email actually consists of, and what data points you can include, but what next? So, Rebecca, what would you advise for brands who are wanting to get started now?
Well, from a strategy perspective, I would say it's never too soon to lay the groundwork. We know that you will achieve the best results if you've got time to properly shape the idea rather than just executing it. I would also say getting clear early on about what you want customers to take away is going to give you a much stronger narrative to build around rather than just working backwards from the data you have. Next, on data, if you don't have the data that you want, that is okay. You can either start collecting it with intent or choose a different angle that still is going to deliver meaning to your customer. Just in general, these are exactly the kinds of decisions that we help teams navigate at Action Rocket. So we're always here to support.
Absolutely. And we're here as a sounding board at any stage. So from those initial ideas or brainstorming sessions to testing outputs and seeing what works for the following year. So yeah, whenever you want to have a chat, then reach out to us. And with that, we have got time for a Q&A. We're going to be answering some live questions in a second, but we have received some prior to this. So firstly, how do I make the case for a wrapped email internally, especially if my boss sees it as a nice to have rather than a priority? Andy, do you want to take this one?
Sure. I think going back to what we just talked about is don't just make it a yearly email. You could justify putting in the effort to build it by also pitching it as a monthly or a quarterly email, or using parts of it in your other newsletters or communications or triggers. And
Mhm.
so it's not just a one-off, nice to have email. It's actually part of a much bigger way to engage the audience throughout the year. That's kind of, I think that's a quick win. It's an easy way to get buy-in from managers. I'd be interested, Rebecca or Bex, if you have any other thoughts on that. But um,
No, yeah, I completely agree. Everything that we've just said, and test as well. Like use it as a testing board for 1 year and see how it performs, and then you can go back and you've got a use case as to what did work, what didn't work, what you could improve. Segmentation as well, like did different segments perform better?
Absolutely.
Um, yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Um,
if it does work well as well, that one-off email could be well worth the time and effort as well. Like obviously,
mhm.
it's worked for Spotify. It works for a lot of these other brands, and so they're obviously getting a good return on their investment, and it is worth the effort.
Yeah, I think as well, people wait for these kind of things, don't they? Like your monthly newsletters or something which become a little bit more kind of boring sometimes, like you don't have the content to be putting in month on month. But when customers are waiting for these kind of wrapped emails at a certain time of year, or even surprise and delight, like I mentioned earlier, sending them mid-year, that could be so much more impactful than just like a standard monthly newsletter that gets no engagement. Cool. Okay, so next one. What's the biggest mistake that you see brands make when they try to create wrap style emails that potentially don't land well? Chris, what would you say to this one?
I think it's what we mentioned before, basically kind of confusing data with insight. I suppose it's not enough to really just dump loads of stats in an email without a clear narrative or a story or an emotional payoff. It doesn't really land. And I think with the things like the sort of like Spotify Wrapped and the OG Wrapped, what makes that work is the data's curated. So they're only really targeting the meaningful highlights and meaningful data points framed as narrative, said before, and having that emotional validation that makes someone goes like, oh yeah, that's so me. Oh my God.
Mhm.
And I think that's really the benefit from it.
Definitely.
Um,
I think as well, like community is huge. I would say that's something which I think the gym group did exceptionally well is like thinking about community. And if you don't have segments, like create segments for people. So I think it was like you're a nighttime gym goer or you're a morning gym goer. And when people can identify with that, that's so powerful because they care. And everybody always wants to be part of a community, don't you? And you want to feel seen from those brands. So I think that's a big thing as well that you could build upon.
100%.
Okay, and then what's the best way to test a wrapped email so that you can learn from it and improve on it year on year? Rebecca, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of treating wrapped emails as if they're a one-off moment, like we've talked about, rather than something you can learn from, as which we've identified they really are. I would treat a wrapped email as you would any other program. So break it down into components and test your assumptions. Test the framing of the insight that you have, test the visual execution, and test the next step or the CTAs that you're nudging people towards. I think don't stop at opens and clicks. You've really got to interrogate whether it's working based on what your objectives are as well. So, do people come back? Do they upgrade or do they take action based on what you've designed for them? And that's really where the learnings are.
Yeah, definitely. Another one we've got is I'm a user of both a couple of the examples that we went through, but sadly I didn't receive a wrapped email from either of these brands. So I'm just curious about segmentation and why some go out and some don't to others. I think we've had this before, I think, Rebecca, haven't we, within the strategy team at Action Rocket, where it really depends on the data. So if somebody hasn't engaged as much as you want them to within the email, so if we're talking about you've bought X amount of products and the person hasn't, if it's going to be like a negative connotation, then you just wouldn't include that segment to that audience. I'm surprised that you didn't
Exactly.
receive anything because I would say when we work with brands, we'd always have a fallback. So there'd be a different version of that content. Um, but yeah, I think segmentation is key, right? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think it's a real missed opportunity to not send someone a fallback, even if it is not personal data, but that collective data. It's just, yeah, it feels like a bit of a miss.
hmm And then what else have we got? Segmentation. Oh, about carousels within email for wrapped emails, Chris. Is that something that you could pick up on? Like, so animations and carousels and things, that's all doable in these kind of emails, right?
Yeah, 100%. But with obviously with some ESPs that don't support interactivity in that instance, so you would have to sort of design a fallback for that. With the gym group one, we did a fallback where they're all static images sort of in a long column as you'd expect. But the best part about that is then you can sort of be sure that the fallback is equally as nicely designed as the interactive. So regardless of what you receive, it doesn't look like the email's broken or you've got the wrong one, and all the data is still there.
Hmm. I think an important point on that as well is accessibility in dark mode and mobile. Like test on all these things. Like it might look great internally within your teams on whatever you're using, but test it on everything because you still want, like, if you're going to so much effort to make an email look amazing, some bespoke Solus email like this, you want it to look good everywhere for everyone, or at least somebody have like a good standard of it. That's pretty important, I think, right, Chris? Cool. Okay, so I will just include one more. Andy, I'll come to you on this. So, thoughts of balancing the amount of data that you're sharing in a wrapped email versus assuming it's something, oh, sorry, versus driving users to wrapped landing pages. Assuming it's something that you need to test for your audience, I would agree to that. And I think there's a balance. It depends how much data you have and you want to share, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. I mean, so I have this year I have seen some like in-app as well. In-app, like
Hmm.
ChatGPT had an in-app wrapped. I didn't even know what it was. Just like a design that you could go through in the ChatGPT interface. I didn't receive an email about. I think I received a generic email about it actually. So there's kind of I personally I think if you want to like really drive higher email engagement, then pulling some of it into an email and then directing them to a landing page or an app is probably the way to go if you can. Otherwise, yeah, brands are also kind of displaying these wrapped messages on their websites, landing pages, and in app as well.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think it's actually a really good way to get opt-ins is if you do just have a landing page and you make it all bells and whistles and it's exciting, and that's a good way to get more subscribers with the
Hmm.
promise of more sort of unique insights and personalized things for them.
Definitely. And it's all content that you can use on, like, take it into email, take it wherever the customer is, right? So if you can make that journey bespoke for them, then absolutely do that. Cool. Okay. If there is any more questions, then please reach out to us and we will follow up afterwards. But for now, that is a wrap. Thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you to everybody for joining. Our email is on the screen, and yeah, follow up if you have any further questions or you want us to help you with anything wrapped this year. We'd be more than happy to help. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.